Okay, so our next presenter, Edith, is with 500 Startups, and I have another funny story. So, about 10 years ago, I was doing advertising and real estate, and Edith used to do these events called BizTech Day. So the actual reason why I'm in the tech world is because of Edith, because her events were awesome. I call her like the mobile ninja samurai, and she's super cool and super smart. Edith, come on down.
Hi, guys.
All right.
Are you going to do some dance with me?
You want to dance?
No, I'm I can sing. All right. I'm loving my Google I/O T-shirt. That's why I'm wearing it, and that's where I'm going right after. So I'm very excited to be here. And today, I know like you guys have many other awesome events, and I'm always a really huge fan of Nima. So thank you for being here. So before I go into like all these details about like Uber and convince you to China, I want to have a quick intro about myself. So my name is Edith Yeung. So I was made in China. Officially actually manufacturing in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, if you guys been there, is the land of awesome dim sum, shopping, and super expensive real estate. So similar to most of the Chinese product, I was exported about 20 years ago. And now 20 years later, I'm one of the partners at 500 Startups, and I've put particular focus on investing in mobile, VR, and IoT. So today, I'm here because I do spend a lot of time between here and China, and I'm here to convince you why you need to think about Chinese market. But at the same time, I'm going to scare you a little bit because China market is very complicated and in some way a little bit scary. But then also, I'm going to share with you how some of the companies like Uber solved this problem and been doing actually pretty well in China. And by the way, I have all these crazy stories about Uber in China, which if you guys want to know more, we can maybe, if we have time in Q&A, happy to tell you about it. So now, first, to start with, I want to convince you why you need to think about China market. So China, by the number, over 1.35 billion people in China. I think last time I checked, it's about 330 million population in the US. So these are like 4 times, it's crazy, so many people in China. Now is over 700 million smartphone users, and about 260 million of them are located in about 15 Chinese cities, first-tier and second-tier city, which I'll tell you more about it later on. WeChat, basically the Facebook Messenger of China plus more. Actually, this morning is definitely over 650 million users. There's a lot of people on messaging app. And about 21 unicorns since 2011. Unicorn, I know we're in a startup conference, but basically that worth $1 billion plus. If you guys saw the news earlier or last week, Apple just put in another $1 billion into Didi Dache, which is the equivalent of Uber of China, and they are worth about $26 billion. There's over 200 app stores, which if you, actually, I have a spreadsheet of over 300 app stores, mainly because China is a land of Android. Pretty much 90% of the smartphone users in China are Android users. And Apple, in just one weekend when they launched the iPhone, I think 6S last year, sold 13 million units in just one weekend. So that's why so many very awesome CEOs been going to China. But China is really tough. Legally, think about Google got kicked out of China, device fragmentation, pretty much, Xiaomi, Huawei, all these Chinese OEMs, they all use Android fork. So it's a very complicated market if you wanted to, push your mobile apps. A lot of fraud, which I will show you a little picture that I took in China. There's a lot of fake install. It's a lot of things that is sort of fake. Most of the Chinese people wouldn't, actually afraid to even eat Chinese food sometimes, which we can talk about that later on. I'm not here for political reason. Language barriers. If you really want to do something in China, you have to speak Chinese. Not knowing a language, because China market is so big, and most of the developers, they don't need to speak English to have access to such a large market. And then last but not least, the Great Firewall. Every time I go back to China, I just completely forgot that the fact that none of my email, Twitter, and Facebook work. It's very frustrating. But still, tons of people love China. Tim Cook, well, if I sold 13 million iPhone over a weekend, I would love China too. Mark Zuckerberg, and on the record, even though he was able to speak Chinese for about 20 minutes in his speech in Tsinghua, I still think his Chinese sucks. And last year, I heard from the grapevine that Travis from Uber spent over 50% of his time in China market. And last year, combined, he raised about $1.5 billion from companies like Baidu and other places just to focus on China market. So imagine, so all these rock stars are spending time over there. What are you going to do about it? So, well, let's see. One way to look at it, you can act like a unicorn. Actually, I'm joking. You can't do that. In fact, you really need to some special Kung Fu Panda move. And what I'm going to do now in the next 5 minutes or so is to share with you what are some of the Kung Fu Panda moves that Uber have done in China. All right, 8 tips. I made up the 8 because 8 is a lucky number in China. So everything is 8. And if you go to a Chinese building, there's no 4 and there's no 13. It's very, very confusing. But the 8 tips, which I'm going to go through a recap later on, but I'll give you various examples for each of these. Okay, so to start with, if you're thinking about going to Chinese market, you need to pick a Chinese name. So I can actually go through all these numbers like for hours, but just to start with a few of the familiar companies like Uber. So Uber, the Chinese brand name is Youbu. Youbu means elegant ride. And then LinkedIn, which all of us are on LinkedIn, they have a Chinese name named Ling Ying, and that means the best talent. Pretty good, right? But there's a few other things, as I mentioned. Numbers. So sometime when I first sort of went back to China to work on Dolphin, which is my previous company before I joined 500, I was very confused about all these numbers. So Wu Yao 51 is not because they run out of names. It's because Wu Yao, this word, also rhyme with I want. So therefore, I want jobs. Wu Yao jobs means I want jobs, if that makes sense. So you will see a lot of sort of popular websites, they're all numbers, and for that reason, because all rhyme with certain word within the Chinese language. All right, so second thing, after you pick an awesome Chinese name, of course, I focus on mobile, so a lot of these examples are more mobile focused. If you only remember one thing from my talk is, if you want to survive as a mobile app developers or startups, China is all about third-party market. So in this, by the way, you feel free to take pictures, but this whole presentation available on SlideShare, so you can download it. So this top 8 are some of the sort of major third-party app store that I'm aware of, and being top, like on the top feature list on all these app stores, will equivalent of at least if you're top 10, definitely you'll get millions of install every day, just because of the sheer size of the market. I took a quick screenshot of Uber in the 360 App Store, and the concept of App Store SEO is still very, very similar. So in this screenshot, you can actually see Uber listed the actual word, this name of the cities that they are available. So if you think about it, no one in China is going to type Uber, U-B-E-R. They're going to type Rai and Guangzhou, for example, and that's how the name of you rise up in terms of the App Store SEO. So the same concept that what we do in the US, it apply in the Chinese App Store market as well. And then number 3, offline marketing, because in certain part of China, it's still very, very expensive in terms of data plan. So most people are quite conscious about keep downloading things, but so therefore, there are a few things that, if you're growing in China market, and because on top of that, labor is really, really cheap. So even for Uber, so this particular is a screenshot and the QR code. QR code is super popular in China. I'm not sure why it never took off in the US. But in this, partner with China, you're going to make money. So you will see people literally like hang out flyer on the street, give you a coupon code, give you flyers, and this is going to sound really, really wrong coming from me. So these are actually pictures that I took from GMIC, which is a really awesome conference in Beijing. And these are the booth babes. that are standing around and giving out flyers to try to get your attention to come to that booth. And then on top of that, the one that on the right-hand side, which just cracks me up, these guys are trying to promote a Middle East app store for the developer to use, so they dress up like they're from the Middle East. Really, really funny. But you see this all the time, and it worked. All right, so number 4, mobile marketing. And most of the developers know for a fact that the same concept of mobile ad network work really, really similar in China as well. So, but it is a little bit cheaper, but I wouldn't say by a lot. But if you pay, let's say, 10 or 20 cents per install, and then sometimes go up to $1, I'm talking about in US dollar, from 10 cents up to $1, some of the 10 cents install, in fact, they are fake installs. So this particular photo, this lady, she's manually installing apps on all hundreds of these phones in front of them. And this center literally have hundreds of workers who are doing these fake install. But the developers know that they're doing it. At the same time, they sort of need it, because if you have momentum of more and more natural, like sort of organic install, then you'll go up the rank. And the higher the rank, you will get more organic traffic. So it's a sort of a cycle that you need to sort of prep for it. But most of the Chinese developers are well aware that this is happening, but you sort of need it. So this particular list is some of the popular mobile ad network that I'm aware of in China that you can potentially work with. All right, number 5 is partnership in terms of mobile marketing is really, really popular. Doesn't matter you're a news app or messaging app or various different social network. They all very happy to take your money to drive install for you. But one of my favorite integration, which I think Google is also doing that with Uber, but who knows, is the Baidu and Uber integration. So imagine if you are looking for direction, and then instead of walking public transportation, you drive your own car. Uber is also one of the options as well. But of course, they're willing to do that because Baidu invested in Uber. And also there's weather app, map app, all the above are all here and very open to work with app developers. And then a few other things, as I mentioned, is a lot of offline marketing, but also one of the things I think is most interesting, very unlike in the US, right? Pretty much most of the marketing that we do apply, doesn't matter where you go in San Francisco or Chicago or New York. But in China, it's actually quite different. I know for a fact that each of the local team for Uber have their own autonomy pretty much to do whatever they want. Means the way of their own marketing or their main offering. So in here you see Beijing or Xiamen or Xi'an, they all have the different marketing flyers, give people different incentive. And I want to tell you guys a really quick story. In Shanghai, most of the Shanghai drivers drive not because they want to make money, it's because they want to look for dates. So Uber is actually the new Tinder, which I can tell you more later on. All right, and then very hyperlocal communication, because most of them don't speak English, and some of them, they using Uber driver app because so therefore you need to have printout, like literally like this printout they put in the car and really want to make sure that the driver is not missing out. And then you need to socialize Chinese style. So no Facebook, Twitter, and no Google. So pretty much most of the customer service is done on WeChat and or Weibo, which is Twitter of China, Renren, Kaixin, and are like Facebook. And then Tencent, yes, I didn't make a mistake. There's 2 versions of Twitter. So there's Xinlang and both Tencent have their own Twitter. Last but not least, super hyperlocal offering means this Yuanmin Youbu, which most of the benefit go back to the driver, not to Uber. But that quality of car is a little bit lower, and the driver actually told me, don't take this because it's very dirty. But still, like people can't afford it, wanted to take a cheaper option, and it's only available in certain cities. And then last but not least, I add on another one for the number 8. You do need to have a Chinese entity if you want to hire, have bank account, office. Of course, you can, at the beginning, you can sort of remote control, but if you really want to grow, you need a local entity. So just to recap, pick an awesome Chinese name, optimize for third-party app store, offline and online marketing is very, very important. Socialize in Chinese style, hyperlocal offering, hyperlocal communication, and definitely you need a local entity. So with that, I wish all of you the best of luck. I always trying to be funny, but I'm not really. But I hope you have your own mooncake and you can eat it too. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'm very easy to find. I'm pretty much everywhere on Twitter, don't connect me on Facebook. We're not really friends. LinkedIn is fine. But on my deck and this particular presentation available on SlideShare. Thank you.